Hi, everyone. Welcome to Menopause Chats. I'm your host, Erin. Very excited today to have Nakisha Dixon with us to talk about menopause in the workplace. Dun, dun, dun. So, Nakisha, tell us a little bit about you, what you do, and yeah, what can we be doing better?
That's funny. I'm Nakisha Dixon. I am currently the Director of Human Resources for Valor Fleet Services. We are a I don't want to say just tow truck, right? We're a fleet services company based in the Virginia and Maryland area. I've worked in HR primarily in head of human resources, VP, COO roles for the past 15 years. And I have had a great career from seeing those going through menopause to now enjoying my own episode of perimenopause.
Lucky
I like
you.
to find the joy shirt. That's why I was like, find the joy in this.
Right, right. Which, yeah, with my shirt, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, it is different, right? To be like, oh, to be on both sides of it.
Right. Yeah.
And so as someone who's been in the HR space, I guess what are you seeing? Are you seeing a shift, I think, in how perimenopause and menopause is addressed in the workplace?
Yeah, that's a great question, Erin, because I work for smaller companies. I work for smaller companies for over a decade. And I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done really addressing perimenopause and menopause in the workplace. I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done and well-being in general. It's one of the reasons why I went and got my corporate certification in wellness, just to understand how can we better support our employees. I am happy that over the past year, I see more resources for those in perimenopause and beyond. And it's not a conversation that we have to keep under wraps because I remember 2 decades ago when I first entered HR, no one talked about perimenopause. They talked about it as if it was a bad thing to have. They would say, oh, she's on her period. That's why she's that way, or she's going through the change. So for someone that's going through the change, who wants to talk about it or talk about what they need when it's had such a negative connotation to it? So,
Yeah, and I feel like some of it too stems from people not wanting to draw attention to their age.
yeah, yeah, that's so true, Erin, especially women in the workforce. As well as you, we're very lucky, right? Because we can look different than what our real age shows. But when we start talking about these concepts, I wouldn't say at my current employer, but in past employers or past places, they'll say, "Well, how old are you?" And
Right,
then there's a whole discussion about, do I want to share that? Do I
right.
want you to know that?
Yeah. Because you never know. It's almost the same as like, we always train managers on not asking particularly women of childbearing years if they
Mhm.
have kids or like in an interview because you don't like, oh, you're making a decision that like this person's not going to want to travel because they have kids. And it's like, well, you don't know that and you likely don't ask male candidates that same question even if they have kids. But like same thing with like, women, it's like, oh, you don't want to like, oh, well, she's not going to be capable of doing that because she's brain fog or she's, not at the top of her game anymore, which we know is BS.
Yeah, exactly,
But
exactly.
I get why people don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, it's
Or
hard.
or do I want to talk about it? I'm lucky, and then particularly in HR, often there's a lot of women.
Mhm.
And so I'm lucky enough to work with a lot of women and report to, women. So I don't feel weird having those conversations. But if I
Mhm.
reported to a man, maybe.
Yeah, 100%. And that just goes back to like educating your leaders on what perimenopause and hormonal health in general is.
Yeah.
I do speaking outside of work, and one of my clients, just as late as last week or as early as last week, said, Can you do a workshop, a virtual workshop, and just educate my team on perimenopause? And I was like, Really? And it wasn't a large company, it was a mid-sized company. And the woman was not in HR. She's just someone I knew by chance and just said, we always do a monthly well-being topic, and I want this year to be about topics that are affecting our workplace that are past or traditional discussions. And I think that a lot of employers can really benefit from that. We talk about ADA in the workplace, and we talk about, like I mentioned, mental health and how we can do better at that. But let's talk about the woman executive that has brain fog, because that was my first symptom. I was like, oh my gosh, I have this, I have that, right? I went to my doctor and already Googled symptom myself about all the things I had. And my doctor was like, no, you have this. And I was like, well, what is that? And how can I support myself? And what do you mean it's going to be going on for as 15, 20 years?
Right.
How am I going to manage with that? What medication can I take? Just all these things. But at the next hour, I had to go back on a webinar call, or I had to go prepare for a board meeting. And what resources can I tell my manager that I need to be successful for the next 15 years?
Yeah. And what recommendations would you have for, I guess, companies and managers, and even employees in some ways, one to advocate for themselves, but also for managers, like to educate themselves? Or what would you recommend that organizations do?
Yeah, that's a good question. The first thing is education. I think back to 2008 when we had the financial crisis, and I like to draw together other things that happened in the past that employees were very very connected to, because it shows that not only is perimenopause and beyond. I call it beyond because it's perimenopause, it's menopause, it's life, right? Um, but during 2008, when people were worried about their homes, it was the financial crisis, it was the real estate market was just going down, we offered education about how to manage your money, refinancing, how to save your home. So why are we not doing the same kind of education for our employees that are going through this, that may have a significant other or a mother or a daughter that's going through, so I want to know how can I best support that person, but also how can I best support each other. We don't have to know each other's ages to know that, hey, we need to be more um, compassionate in the workforce and understanding. And especially me, I've worked in male-dominated fields my entire career. It's what I love. But I never assume that they're going to know what I need, and I never assume that I'm going to know what their need. It's all about that education component. So hold those life balance workshops. Don't make them transparent. Don't make them transparent, but don't do the usual, right? And when I say the usual, don't just tell the EAP, hey, do a general discussion about all the things. Start looking into things that not only matter to your workforce, that are global. And perimenopause over the past year, there's companies that are built all around how to support us women. It's growing. So we need to learn more how best to support each other and how best to help others support themselves.
Yeah, and I think, some of it is that even the employees themselves might not realize that they're
Yeah.
going through it. So they don't know the symptoms to look like. You said, you're like, oh, I have this symptom, but I thought it was like all these other, I Googled it and
Oh
Dr.
yeah.
Google told me it was all these other things
Yes.
and not
Yes, Erin.
perimenopause.
Dr. Google told me I was going to lose all these things, and I was like, oh man, well, let's get my will together. But you're right. So right.
Yeah, and so I feel like there's a part of it that is, the education of ourselves, the education of other managers, compassion and empathy for the experiences that people are going through, which I feel in some ways the global pandemic that we all went through helped at least shine a light a little bit on the fact that like people have different needs. At the time
Mhm.
I was working at a law firm and, a bigger thing, we were doing a lot of little like employee resource groups, and some of them were around childcare in the home and like people who were working and then also had their kids at home. But then it was like realizing that there was a difference in populations between the partners who had certain means to have like a live-in
Mhm.
nanny or, versus the associates who weren't there yet in their career to be able to afford that
Right.
because they're still paying off law school. And so, also recognizing that I think I loved what you said about the idea of looking at your population and what are they going through and what are their needs, and then customizing training from that perspective. And age aside, I mean, perimenopause can start in your 30s and
Mhm.
it could also start in your 50s. So there's not there's certainly averages, but it could start that early. And I for one know definitely that in my 30s this wasn't on my radar. and
Yeah.
had no clue whatsoever that, and didn't know until I was postmenopausal that
Yep.
I was actually perimenopausal this whole time. So
Mhm.
how I don't know if my employer at the time would have. It's funny. I even wonder. I'm thinking this out loud, but like I wonder if I would have even gone to a workshop like that because I would have been like, well, that's not me.
Yep. Me too. I would do the same
Yeah,
thing 5 years ago,
yeah,
especially now because people are having kids in their 50s. And I just saw one woman 58 having a baby, talking about having her next. Medical technology has allowed so much, so we don't think about it.
yeah,
And then, like you mentioned, Erin, about I was going through this in my 30s. I was going through, for me in my 40s, and I'm like, wait, what? What does that mean? And then it's kind of also a little bit more than that because you start thinking about, well, what I don't want any more kids, but I'm kind of getting to the point where I don't get to have the choice. So it's like grieving something
yeah,
you don't even want, but you just want the option. I don't always like ice cream, but I like to have it in the freezer,
yeah,
right? So I'm like, what if I couldn't have ice cream anymore? I might not even, I don't even know, but the option is gone. And it's all of the things that you mentioned. It's like there's so much education an employer can provide through the health insurance, through your EAP, through just going out and getting a speaker.
yeah,
Because again, there might be someone 25, then, you never know when perimenopause is going to start. That at that point, hey, it may not be a concern, but who knows what's going to happen in the future. But giving the education out there, at least giving the option, because again, like any kind of workshop you offer to your employee population, they may or may not go. I think another good thing for employers too is that flexible. We talked a little bit about this before in a previous discussion, but flexible workplaces, right? I know personally for me and a lot of the people that I support that have been through perimenopause and beyond, or going through rather, the flexibility. When you have that brain fog, when you're really tired,
yeah,
when you're trying to figure out your labs and you're trying to figure out if hormone replacement therapy is something that you want to go through, when you're like me and you're grieving and you're like, but I don't even, you're trying to figure it all out. Like, why am I sad? What does this all mean? Having the flexibility, being able to whether work from home, I know we all can't do it, but a lot of companies can. Just change your schedules, just being open-minded. Not only is that good for those of us perimenopause and beyond, but it's also good for your workplace.
yeah.
Life is changing so much, and we need to keep ahead of it. And flexibility for people is important because all doctors are not going to be open after 5 p.m.
Yeah, and it's also helpful for people to feel like, oh, this is a workplace that cares about me. And they
Exactly.
care about me as a human and my whole self, not just the work output that I'm giving them.
I love that. I love that part, because exactly sometimes when as an HR leader, I think about for the employee, but I don't think about the employer, right? It's because if we're doing the right thing for our employee, then it's just going to show us the employer. But it is important that employers are showing that they are places that people want to work because they care.
Yeah. And then people might stay longer too, right?
Yeah.
So it helps with retention so if we look at it, if we want to look at it from the employer's perspective, it's like if I'm doing these things, then maybe this person will choose to stay in the workplace longer
Mhm.
because they feel like they can be honest about what's going on with them without there being repercussions. To be like, listen, this is something that's going on. I'm working through it and trying to, figure it out. And, my sleep's really bad. And so now it would be great if I could start at 10 o'clock instead of at 8 o'clock because then I can sleep in a little bit longer and be more productive. And maybe you're working a little later, but it's all a balance, right? And just, but having that flexibility, like you mentioned, can be it's such a small thing. It doesn't cost anything. It doesn't
Right.
cost anything.
No, fostering a culture of psychological safety,
Yeah.
right? Making people, not even making, I don't want to say, I never want to say make, I want to say ensuring that people know that this is going to be a place that is safe, that if you need access to cold water, that if you need desk fans, if you just need quiet spaces,
Yeah.
request it. If we can provide it, we will. Just being mindful of these things.
Yeah. And as managers too, like letting them know like, hey, don't jump to conclusions that it's about performance. Like maybe check in.
Hmm.
I always like to say people before process. So like check in with
Yep.
the person and
Yep.
then move into like, okay, what's actually going on and have a dialogue. Don't come in like accusatory of like, because you're only looking at part of the problem, right? So you might only
Right.
be saying like, oh, like you seem to be forgetting things lately. Okay, but that's, let's talk about, the whole issue, not just like what you're seeing. It's like what's going on for
Yeah.
you, but also then knowing that you're creating that space, that psychologically safe space that someone can
Hmm.
then feel okay saying, you know what, I actually don't know what's going on with me, but you're right. I've been more forgetful lately because again, maybe I don't know that this might be, perimenopause or beyond. And so it's like, oh, yeah, let's talk about this or what might help me. I don't know. Let me think about that. Or I'm going to start writing things down, or I'm going to start, like I have to put things in a to-do list. Like I have a to-do
Yeah.
list app, and if it doesn't get on there, it doesn't happen, or it might happen, but
Hmm.
it might be late.
Yep.
Because I didn't
Yep.
remember. And then I remember at
Yep.
3 a.m. and like, oh, I got to go add that thing to my list. So making
Sleep
sure that,
disruption.
yes. And yeah. And then our workplaces are not designed for focused work anymore. It's like a lot of
Right.
like meetings, 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 interruptions. And that might not work best for someone either. So,
Hmm.
are there times, and again, back to the flexibility of like, okay, maybe I, leave work a little early on a Friday because on Saturday I'm going to do 2 hours worth of work
Right.
that I can fully concentrate and,
Hmm.
without getting, interrupted. And, again, that's other accommodations that can be made and allowing a manager to know like, oh, what are there, what options can I provide an employee or
Hmm.
and really it's not a one size fits all.
It really is not.
Perimenopause is not a one size fits all experience either. So the
Yeah.
solutions can't be a one size fits all.
You're so right about that, right? It's not one size fits all. Employers, what I tell all employers is try. You're not going to hit every check mark for perimenopause and menopause because there's so many that we don't know. We know about anxiety. We know
Mhm.
about brain fog. We know about sleep disruptions. We know about hot flashes. But I joined a group on Facebook and I just found like 20 other things. And I was like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, let me log out. Because there's so many things that come with perimenopause and menopause. And there was one thing that you said that I think I really want to make sure resonates with managers that watch this chat is that talk to your employee before the performance gets to the point where you want to write them up, you want to give them a verbal warning, and just find out how you can support someone, whether it's perimenopause and beyond or anything going on in their life.
Right.
Just mention it to them, but come from a place of, is there something I can do to help?
Right. If every manager did that,
Yeah, if everyone said it right
the world would be a
now,
different place.
it would be a fantastic place. They may not even need so many HR people that
Right?
hit their bottom line.
Yeah.
They
Not that we
will.
want to put ourselves out of work, but
No, no, but we want to give people, we want to give people a fair shot because, like you said before, the brain fog, the fatigue, the
yeah.
sleep disruption, right?
Yeah.
It's just, you don't know. And we go back to the beginning we said before about people don't know when to look into these things until they're in the thick of them.
Right.
Another thing that you mentioned, I want to make sure that I hit for employers is review your health benefits that you offer to employees. Make sure that hormonal replacement therapy is covered. Ensure that therapy is covered. Ensure that some of the things that people that are going to perimenopause and beyond, like nutrition, sleep coaching, that those are covered. And if you can't cover them 100%, at least acknowledge here is a list of things we want to be able to cover in the future. Because some people can pay out of pocket and some people can't, going back to the whole price point. So.
Yeah, I mean that's what I always say to people is like I feel fortunate to be able to afford to see a doctor that is not
Mhm.
covered by insurance for these
Mhm.
things, but not
Right,
everybody has that ability. And there are a lot of great telehealth opportunities as well for people now. So is that covered by your insurance?
right.
And if not, sometimes it's at least more cost effective than others. But that care access to care shouldn't be a barrier for people.
No, and that especially when it's something that
Affects
when you do the
everyone.
math, I did the math about how much it costs to cover, it's pennies on the
Right.
dollar. You can
Well,
cover some of these things.
and we're 50% of the population, and if we get to this age, and we cover pregnancy, we cover other
Right,
things, so it's like, why is this, not something that might be covered? I
exactly.
believe most insurances do and will cover, hormone replacement therapy, but still, it's to even then find a doctor within your network who may
Yeah,
or who's educated in this area, because as we know, the medical professionals often are not either.
right, right.
So how can we, it's like we're there's so much put on us to
Yeah,
have it figured out when, we look to our medical professionals to have this information and they might not have it. So I think for people listening to know that your medical professional, it might not be that they don't want to help you, it might be that they don't know how to help you.
right. And you know what? I love what you said for the medical profession because they're trained in one way. But you may also need to open up your avenues of professionals, right? I took a coaching class in perimenopause and menopause just to better understand how to help people make behavioral changes and build routines and physical movement, just to be able to
Yeah.
understand that. And I say that because perhaps your team is not just your doctor. Maybe it is your primary doctor. Maybe it's your OBGYN. Perhaps you do get a coach that specializes in perimenopause and beyond. Maybe you get a nutritionist, right? Maybe you get a personal trainer. Maybe it's a team of people, and the majority can be covered by your health insurance to help you navigate this stage. Personally, for me, I have a team. So again, it's all about making sure that you navigate, that you educate. And me as an employer, I'm openly telling you this in hopes that other people will say, let's normalize
Right.
perimenopause and beyond.
Right, because it should be normalized. It's not
Mhm.
the time for it to be like a sort of hidden, thing. Let's not talk about it. There, shame around it or anything like
Right.
that is done. Like we're beyond that.
100%. And you know,
And-
one thing someone told me is, oh, you're going to gain 50 pounds. And I'm like, no, let's normalize not assuming what's going to happen.
Right.
Let's just normalize this is our stage. What support do we need? Let's get the support. Let's let go of some of the common or previous held beliefs about this stage in our lives.
And you might gain weight, you might not.
Mhm.
And you might temporarily, and then, so it is, again, everybody's experience is different.
Mhm.
I was thinking about, it's funny that you mentioned that because I was thinking about this the other day, maybe it was yesterday, where I was like, if everybody gained weight, then everybody who was over 45 would be overweight. And that's not the case.
No,
So
no,
it's
no.
like it's still a difference of, people's bodies, genetics, lifestyle choices that are, everything gets sort of compounded. And again, it's a whole person thing. It is not, everyone does this. Everyone, like, not everybody has hot
Mhm.
flashes.
No.
I think it's
No.
only 80% of people will get them.
Hmm.
So again, not, in everyone's cases of them, if you're in that 80% that get them, are going to be different. Like mine pretty much
Exactly.
only came in the middle of the night. And
Right.
so, they very rarely came, but I've had other coworkers who've, had them during the day. Like they're like, oh, got to take off my sweater,
And
like,
yes,
and
exactly.
so
Hmm.
it is a different, everybody has a different experience. And that was, I think that was my biggest piece of education when I
Yeah.
started, this journey. Well, when I found out I was postmenopausal, that's where I was like, I went down the rabbit hole of like a ton of research, getting certified as a coach
Hmm.
in
Yep.
menopause so that I could help other people, because I'm like, if I don't know
Hmm.
these things, there's so many, and
Right.
I see so much of it now that I still forget that there are still people that don't know these things.
100%. And I'm still learning,
Yeah,
right? And I love what you said about learning and growing and figuring and finding out because there's so much that we have yet to learn.
yeah,
It's just a fascinating part of life that um, for me, I'm just always fascinated by them.
yeah,
Like this is just so interesting, so different for everyone. So I see it as how, as an employer, but how can I support you? But how can I learn more,
right.
right?
Yeah.
Um, So,
And then how could you know too that you're not alone? Like that was my whole point
yeah,
in creating this is that I
yep.
wanted to talk to real women who were having their own experiences and being able to have other people watch it and say, "Oh, okay, I see myself in that person," or "I see
Mhm.
myself in that person's story." And so now I don't feel as alone. Or, "Oh, I thought it was just me, and you know what? It's not."
Yeah, you're so right. I'm going to say 3 years ago, perimenopause was a passing thought, right? We would just, we would use different symptoms of perimenopause, but now it's like, I want someone to identify. And I'm glad you have this show, this chat, because I want to talk about it and I want others to normalize it. And I don't want to be able to, I want to be able to say, hey, Erin, this happened. Have you experienced this? And have someone I know and I can trust and that I can talk to about. So we have a lot of work as employers in general, all employers,
Yeah.
and that's supporting our employees. But I also, last thing I want to say is employees, come to your HR departments. Let us know what resources we can best have to support you. We're learning just alongside you. We're using AI to learn. We're going to classes. We're doing all the things, but we don't know all the things, even if we're experiencing perimenopause and beyond. So it's just an open communication and just letting us know how we can best support you and your team members.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you. Anything else you want to share before we wrap up today?
No, nothing to share. Thank you so much for having
Yeah,
me.
thank you. Thank you for being here and fighting the good fight, as I like to say.
I'm trying.
Well, thank you everyone for listening today. Please, feel free to share this, particularly with your perimenopausal and beyond folks and people even before that, so that they know what to expect in the future. If you're interested in being a guest, please reach out. I would love to have you. Otherwise, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks, everyone.